Afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum coming to you from KSCO Radio. And what an amazing day today is. You realize that it's the 250th birthday of the United States? That is incredible. It's just how lucky are we to have such an incredible um, country to live in. And I want to celebrate that by a couple things. I have a really good friend of mine on the air today that I'm going to have come on in a minute. But, thinking of the 4th of July and, 250 years of freedom, and it makes me think of this phrase that I come across a lot by Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So here we are in this incredible country, yet there's so much diversity, so much unhappiness, so many people not liking each other, disease is rampant, and it just doesn't seem like it makes sense. I don't know if any of you have been watching the World Cup, but what's really cool is you see the bagpipers and the people from Japan and all over the world that go, wow, this is America. We love it. It's beautiful, And then yet here we are. Most of the citizens can't stand each other, and what gives? It should be a beautiful place. So I invited a good friend of mine, Drew Johnson, on today to help sort some of this out for us. And it's also pretty cool because right now the we're in the 75th anniversary of a book that came out that pretty much at its time changed the world, and it still is. And it's called Dianetics. And it's now in its 75th year. It's called Dianetics: A Modern Science of Mental Health. And on the back of the book, it says something really cool. It says Dianetics is an adventure. It is an exploration into terra incognita, whatever the heck that is, that vast and hitherto unknown realm, half inch back of our foreheads. L. Ron Hubbard. So, Drew, I would like you to just, jump on and, tell you and I have an idea why I asked you on here today. The world's going crazy in some ways, and some people are doing real well. But as a chiropractor, I want everybody to do well. So, go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your history.
Okay, Dr. McCollum, thank you for having me and happy 4th of July.
Absolutely.
You're right. This is we're celebrated the 75th anniversary of Dianetics last year. This is now the 76th year.
Oh,
Um, but I've been involved in using Dianetics now for 57 years. And it's an amazing subject that helps people do better in life. And who doesn't want to do better in life?
that's absolutely right.
The problems of society are pretty captivating. If you listen to the media, you'll think the whole world's coming to an end. This is the best of times and the worst of times. That's a really good quote.
Yeah,
Um, what occurs to me is that the common denominator of all our ideas in Dianetics is improvement. We want to improve. We want to improve our IQ, our reaction time, our ability to solve problems, our ability to get along with people. There's so many topics that we want to improve. We want more income, for example. We want a better job. We want a better marriage. We want better kids. What don't
yeah,
we want that isn't better, Um, better health for sure. And so there's certain disciplines that address these factors, but nothing happens without the individual. The building block of our society is the individual. And
absolutely.
without that person doing well, the society collapses. And we elect the very best people, Duncan, to run the
Yeah.
government.
You
And
know, I
most governments are heavily criticized by their populations these
Yeah,
days.
absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, personal comment on what you said about, more or less at the end of the day, it's up to us, right? We have families, we have friends, we have businesses or jobs that we have, and we try to get along well in life. And it doesn't really come so clear to you until I'm going to give an example when it came really clear to me. Having coming from a broken family, but a great family. And when my father finally passed away at 91 years old, we were a family and he was on his deathbed. My sister and I were there, and he said, looked up at me and said, finally, you two are off my payroll. And it was like he always had a sense of humor, and it was very funny, but also sad because I realized at that point he was all by himself. It was all him going out. There, you can't take anything with you. So what if we could learn how to get the best out of that while we are alive? I see a lot of stuff about Dianetics these days, a lot of ads, and people are talking about confusions, not being able to make up their mind, um, you know, insecurities, not being able to keep going in a course that they've chosen. And these are the type of things that Dianetic can help with. That's correct, right?
Absolutely. It's that was probably what attracted me to the subject. Uh, it's been vilified, it's been criticized, it's been debunked, it's been called every name in the book.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons I got interested in it, and I wanted to see how bad it really was.
That's funny.
So I went in and I took a introductory course, and in this course, you had to twin up with another student who was there trying to figure it out and practice Dianetics on each other. It was a very inexpensive way to get started, and at that career point in my career as a college kid, I didn't have any money to spend on it, and here was a relatively free way to get going. So I had asthma in college. It kept me out of the draft. In those days, everybody was being drafted,
Yeah.
being sent to Vietnam. And, but I was exempt. And so I had this asthma attack and I went in to get some Dianetic counseling. And you can't really believe this, and I didn't believe it either, but it worked.
Yeah.
I walked in with asthma, I walked out without it,
Wow.
and nothing like breathing to make you a believer.
That
Uh,
was 50 some odd years ago, huh? You're
yeah,
still breathing.
if I haven't had a single asthma attack in 57 years.
So
Uh,
how does that work? What is this? What did you discover that made this permanent change for you? And why was it being held in, was your body experiencing the asthma?
mm. Well, there is this phenomena called a psychosomatic illness.
Yeah.
And the psyche in Greek means spirit, and somatic is the condition of your body. So it's the spirit influencing the body.
Before you go on, let me tell you something. I've been looking up psychosomatic illnesses since talked about it. This book on pathology, it's one of those big, thick books you have to read in school. And, being a chiropractor, I help people with problems with their body. And some people just don't get well as much as others. And that term came to my mind, psychosomatic illness. So, and I want you to expand on it, but I want to tell you that in this huge book that almost all medical people read, it says psychosomatic illness, 30 to 50% of all disease has as part of its origin psychosomatic illness. So we're one of the sickest countries in the world. We're rated 47th in the world for health. We
Wow.
spend more on drugs than any other country. We take half of the drugs made in the world, and we're only 4% of the population. We spent $5.7 trillion on health last year. 70% of it admittedly went to mask symptoms. So that's a lot of money to be spent considering 30 to 50% of all of this could have a psychosomatic cause. Many of the things like arthritis, and there's so many, they say we don't know the etiology. In other words, we don't know the cause. So now I'm going to pass this psychosomatic illness thing over to you because it seems like Dianetics has some answers that we would like to know about. So the floor
It's
is
true.
yours.
Yeah, Dianetics means through mind. In other words, you're going to look at it as a way to undo whatever negative effects the mind has on the body. The funny part is that nothing happens in life without making a decision. Like you decided to become a chiropractor. If you hadn't have made that decision, that would have never occurred.
Right.
I think I can illustrate how this works with an example of a fellow who came to me. He had gone to his chiropractor, and when he got to the appointment, he had tears coming down his face. And the doctor said, "What's wrong, Mike?" And he said, "Well, my wife died."
Huh.
And he said, "Oh, that's terrible. When did that happen?" "A year and a half ago," he said.
Hmm.
A year and a half. Okay, well, you could think a reasonable response might be grief, but not a year and a half later, you think time to move on, right? Anyway, so he sent him over to me to get a Dianetic counseling session. And as he walked into my office, he had tears coming down his face. Uh, he was absolutely paralyzed and stuck at this moment in time when his wife died. And they had been together for 29 years, and she got diagnosed in August with cancer, and he was burying her by November. So this was a very sudden and rapidly progressed condition that resulted in the loss of his lifetime partner. And he was devastated. So we started this dynamic counseling session. I turned off the phone. I put up my in session sign. I put a box of Kleenex on the desk and a wastebasket near his chair, and we began. I've never seen a man cry so much in all my life, doctor. He was devastated. But at the end of several hours of recounting what had occurred in this moment of his wife's passing, he extroverted. He got very cheerful. In fact, he stood up. He said, "What happened? I feel so much better." He couldn't
Wow.
quite account for this sudden sense of well-being. Anyway, I said, "Well, we're going to end off here today. Glad you came, and why don't you come back and see me next week?" He says, "I don't think I'll need to." I said, "But just come anyway. I want to see you." So he
Yeah.
said, "Okay, I'll see you." So he comes back next week. We had another session, and he says, "You sure I need one?" I said, "Yeah, I think so. Let's try it." Anyway, so now we go revisit this moment in his past where his wife died, and he gives me an entirely different part of the story I'd never heard in the first session. And now he's out at the gravesite, and they're lowering the casket, and he says to his wife, "I'll never get over this."
This isn't not that day, but recounting another moment of this
He is
incident.
recounting the moment when they were burying his wife.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
And he is telling her out loud, "Honey, I will never get over this."
Yeah.
Well, guess what? A month, a year, and 6 months later, he still wasn't over
Huh.
it.
Wow.
So that decision, nothing starts without a decision, right?
Yeah.
That decision had held in place his grief, his loss, his remorse, his sense of doom and gloom, and his complete demise as a individual. And so we went over that again, and then we went over it again, and then we went over it again, and then all of a sudden he opened his eyes and he looked up and he goes, "No wonder I've been crying all this time." I go,
Wow.
"Really? Tell me
Wow.
more." And so he undid the decision.
Huh.
It turns out that this is a very common phenomena when a person is experiencing trauma. They very often conclude or decide or come to the opinion that life is not worth living and things are not worth doing, and whatever their decision is, it seems to be effectively working against them.
That is really amazing story.
And Dianetics undoes that. And because of it, my life has been so much more superior than it might have been otherwise. I've benefited a great deal personally is that, I wake up every day. I'm never tired. I don't need a nap. I have a lot of energy.
And you're a young man.
Well, I'm only 78.
Oh.
So
You
you're
are a
right.
young man.
I'm a young guy.
Yeah.
And I'm in good health. And my wife, I've been with the same girl now for 54 years.
Wow.
I probably didn't have a relationship prior to Dianetics that lasted more than 6 weeks. If maybe 6 minutes would be a better
Yeah.
description. Anyway, it's changed a lot of things for the better for me.
I have a couple questions. So
Mhm.
now there's a lot of different therapies out there that some person might go in and try to solve some of this stuff. Now there's a difference here, which I know, but two things you mentioned. One is use the word extrovert, and I'd like you in a second to expound on that. And another thing that you said several hours later. I mean, don't these things like these type of things you go 45 minutes and you're done, or I don't understand what you're talking about.
I can appreciate that. Yeah, we don't run by the clock, we run by the result.
Okay.
In Dianetics, you're looking at essentially your own time track of experience, and it's traveling on the time track that makes it all happen. And in order to do that, you have to look in.
Okay.
But the looking in results in a looking out at the end. And the end result of a Dianetic counseling session is extroversion. It's a sense of well being, it's a sense of being more composed or in the moment, if you will. Present time is a huge element in anybody's life. If
Yeah.
you've ever missed your exit on the freeway, you got to ask yourself who was
Huh.
driving. Where you were multitasking, you were thinking of something else, and the
Right.
car was moving past the exit you needed, and you weren't really in the moment.
Yeah.
Well, this is the effect of trauma on an individual. It holds a piece of their spiritual anatomy in place and freezes it there. And in Dianetic counseling, we unfreeze it, and it takes whatever amount of time it takes. It could take 15 minutes in some cases, or it could take 2.5, 3, 4 hours. So the
Hmm.
time limit, time is not the yardstick. The result is how we determine when to end a session.
That's really cool. So, you mentioned something a little bit earlier. Well, two things. One is Dianetics came out I was looking March 9th, is that right? Or
May 9th,
May 9th,
1950.
1950, and it was an immediate explosion. It was a best-selling book on New York Times and LA Times and all these things. And so what's gone on? You talk about it's being beat up or, people have different opinions of it or try to suppress it. Um, I did a radio show a couple of weeks ago because I'm always out there trying to help people become healthier, change their mind that might be fixed with one idea, trying to get them to think outside the box. And I was talking about something to do with healthcare. Oh, I know. I went to a store and I was showing good foods and bad foods to eat. And some guy got on there and started, going, you chiropractors, you don't have a real license. You got your license in a crackerback jock box and all this kind of stuff. And not quite so nice, but I've been doing this 40 years. Nothing, it makes me know I'm doing something right when I get somebody that I've pissed off one way or another. But I wrote the name of the show was Dogma and Your Health, the Conception of Deception. So, dogma, I want to talk about dogma for a minute because what in our world of health in our country, we know it doesn't work because we're rated 47th, but the dogma means something that you haven't even inspected. It's just been put in as a truth that you go by. And when we see what's going on, we find out that we've been deceived by some big corporations who are supposed to be our friends and keep us healthy. So we have this deception. And so I realize that, I want to put a nice name to that, what happened. And it's not a name that you even hear anymore because it's not okay to do it with anything. and it's called bigotry.
Mm.
You know, I just felt like, wow, this guy's actually responding like this online in today's world. I don't even have to worry about it. He's going to get people talking to him about what's wrong with, you don't go and start giving people hard times like that. I thought it was very interesting, but, because of the lack of understanding, people can be afraid or feel insecure and attack that which they don't know anything about. So I'm just wondering if you want to expand on that a little bit in this subject.
Of course. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of names for this. A stigma is attached to something that you don't want to be associated with. You don't really think twice about telling people you went to a chiropractor anymore because it seems so part of the culture. But if you said, well, I have mental issues,
Yeah,
people think there's a stigma attached to it. But there is nobody that doesn't have some mental issue
yeah,
with something because life is really, I don't know, 9/10 of it is determined by what you're thinking.
right.
If you're not thinking straight, you're not coming up with very good answers. You could use some help. So
Yeah, and you already discussed that. Words with this person, I'll never get over this, and words that they box us in and they keep us small.
yeah, it develops what you might call a prejudice.
Yeah,
Prejudice is usually some fixed idea, usually based on some unhappy experience, substituting itself for reason.
yeah.
Where are you from, Duncan?
Berkeley.
Oh, I met a guy from Berkeley once. It didn't go well. I was wondering why I felt uncomfortable talking to you. You see,
Exactly.
that's an example of a prejudice or a
Yeah,
bias. And so if you're not of the right political persuasion or you don't belong to the right church or if you don't believe in the book of somebody or other, you're just not a real person. And
right.
and so man's inhumanity to man is quite a phenomena to discuss. I'm not sure we could get into that here. What we're
Right.
interested in uh, is helping the individual do better in life
Yeah.
and solve their problems in a way that is optimum for themselves and everybody around them.
Yeah, that's great because if, you've been kind of alluding to, problems with the way that you think or function or the way that stops you. And I'm also looking at the health, illness part of it, that possibly psychosomatics can have something to do with chronic headaches or low back pain. I know personally, I'll tell you my story in a little minute about that will be interesting. But Dianetics is in how many countries now?
I don't know that there are any countries left that you
Yeah.
could not find it. It's been translated into probably over 75 languages.
Wow.
It's all around the world. There's three 3,500 different organizations and groups
Yeah.
worldwide. It's the book Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health, amazing book, is the self-help, best-selling self-help book on the market.
Yeah.
Um,
I got mine.
and we, you know, that it comes with help. The book itself is an amazing read, but people today are not as well educated as they were 50, 75 years ago, 76 years ago, much less, this is our 250th anniversary in America here. The founding fathers had a background in an education in Latin and Greek and history and language and English that you just wonder what happened to our education system.
Yeah.
And Dianetics is really that. It's an education system educating the individual on how their mind works. What asset, what vehicle, what aside from your body, your mind is the most amazing thing you own. And people misidentify it as being the brain. Uh,
Yeah.
it's not the brain, so we're not treating anybody's brain in Dianetics. We're actually Dianetics is a discovery of yourself. It's an education in you, and the more you get educated, usually the better off you are.
So you're not your mind, is what you're telling us.
Well, there's this interesting division of component parts here. A human
Uh-huh.
being, when you meet them, is it looks like, well, there he is. He's got a body, right? And
Yeah.
that's the entire individual, except a woman, if she goes to a singles bar and everybody's checking out her legs, she doesn't necessarily feel anybody cares about her.
Yeah.
So there's the individual, there's the mind, and then there's the body. And these three
Okay.
component parts comprise an individual.
So there's like the soul or spirit, you would say, the mind and the body.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding that they're not their mind.
Well, let me see if I can give you an example.
Hmm.
Um, so obviously, you could probably get an image in your mind of a cat.
Yeah.
You have a picture of a cat?
Yep.
Okay. And what color did you get?
Well, black and white.
You got a black, turn it green
Okay.
and make it blue.
Did it?
All right, now make it black and white again.
Ah, there he is.
All
Yeah.
right. Now, can you help him jump up on the desk near you?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now point to the picture of the cat.
Right there.
Okay. So you didn't point here, did you? You did
Nope.
the cat's not here. It's over there.
Yeah.
You can see it. Now, who's looking at the cat?
Well, I am.
Okay, that's you. It's not your brain. It's not your eyeballs.
Hmm.
It's you. So the discovery of Dianetics is pretty remarkable. The difference between a theoretical and discovery is, in theory, we think it might be this way, but when we discover how it is, then it's no longer a theory.
Right.
So the discovery in Dianetics was that the mind consisted of mental image pictures recorded of a person's experience.
Okay.
My friend whose wife died, he had an experience of losing his wife. He recorded that faithfully in mental image pictures, along with his decisions, along with his attitude, along with his emotion, and along with his grief, along with his sense of loss and whatever else he experienced. And all of that is recorded, but the discovery is these pictures can impinge themselves on an individual. This has been known to medical science for years. They say they talk about stress and mental stress, and oh, this guy has some mental stress. He's got to move to the country and take a rest, right? Why? Because he's got too much stress. It raises blood pressure. It does all kinds of physical things. This is the mind influencing the body. And what is the mind? The mind actually exists in the form of mental image pictures. And these pictures are recorded instantaneously on an automatic basis. The mind is actually a picture taking machine, if you
Hmm.
will. And this discovery of these pictures led to the discovery of how to undo the influence, the negative impact that they have over an individual's sense of fear and trauma and a lack of well-being.
So I want to ask you a question. So looking at the book, there's the mind is broken down into a couple different things. It's like they call the mind the analytical mind and the reactive mind. What's the difference and how does Dianetics help us with that?
Right. Well, you probably met people in your life, and there was parts of them that you liked, and there might have been a part you didn't like.
I think I know who you're talking about.
So
Almost
anyway,
everybody, right?
uh,
Except my girlfriend. No,
so part of the benefit of meeting an individual is their rational selves.
uh-huh.
Um, but if they have any irrational parts, then that would be reactive or stimulus response.
Okay, stimulus response. That's important.
So the analogy, instead of the conscious and the unconscious or the subconscious, we have analytical, meaning rational, logical, uh, accurate perceptions versus irrational or reactive experiences. And so this hidden influence of this thing we call the reactive mind is probably the greatest discovery in modern history. Um, it led to a number of other discoveries, but essentially, what happened with the publication of this book in 1950 was people were able to read it and they would find their wife or husband or friend or a neighbor or a partner somewhere, and they would twin up and they would read the book and practice this on each other. And a fairly well-educated individual can succeed at this just on that approach alone. And this became quite the phenomena. The book itself today, I recommend people who want to read it get somebody to help them.
Uh-huh.
I help a lot of people reading this book, and one of the things I recommend is they read the first 120 pages twice while reading the glossary 5 times.
Huh. Yeah.
It doesn't do you any good to read the book and not know what it means. Uh,
Yeah.
what it means, the words that are used in the book are all defined in the book. And
Yeah.
it's almost like a foreign language until you master the vocabulary.
Right, because we're embarking on a subject that's never really been talked about in this way before that actually gets these results of getting rid of this reactive mind, which I often say, the mind, the human mind is a perfect machine. It will solve every problem you give it based on the data you give it. But if you give it bad data, regardless of how good it is, it's going to come up with a solution based on the data you give it. So to me, that seems like if you're giving it bad information, maybe these things that are from this reactive mind, you're going to come up with a solution because your brain's going to figure it out for you, your mind is. Versus if you don't have those kind of stimulus response knee-jerk things and you could give your body or your mind good information, it's going to come up with the most optimum solution for you to move forward.
Well, that's well put. And, people have what you might call buttons.
Yeah.
And a button is something that when you push it, you get a response of some sort. And if you just say the wrong thing to somebody, you get a very unpredictable reaction sometimes.
Yeah.
I mentioned that Dianetics would help you get rid of this reactive mind, and the person hearing that was immediately, well, I don't want to ever get rid of anything.
Exactly. Because
Because
they've lost stuff their whole life. They're losing in life. Why would you want to get rid of anything? Right?
so she thought we were going to take away her experience. That was the problem.
Yeah.
And we don't take away the experience. What we take away is the negative reaction.
Yeah.
And
So you can learn from it. I
it's
just wanted, I'm going to take a quick moment and just say this is Dr. Duncan McCollum, McCollum Wellness Radio. Happy 4th of July. This is amazing. 250 years of this United States. And you mentioned our forefathers, how brilliant they were to be able to put together the Constitution that has worked for so long. So they were doing something analytical there that's held true all these years. But we're talking about how we can move forward and do better in life, whether it's our health, our decision, our work, things that I'm going to just, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump in and give you my experience with Dianetics. And one reason I wanted you on here, because I figure if I help one person, this is worth it. And that's why I've been doing the radio every Saturday for 7 years. Because if I can give one person hope, whether it's with their health, with decisions, with goals, or what have you, that's awesome. And sometimes people aren't happy that I'm here communicating, but that's just the way it is.
Who would that be?
Exactly. So, when my life, I'm going to just briefly tell you where I started. I had this incredible childhood till I was about 6. First grade, we were making letters, and I made a C backwards. And Mrs. Gorkin came up and flipped out and said I had dyslexia and never taught me how to make the C the other way. First one I'd ever made. Well, I was labeled dyslexic and just shoved down this path. And all of a sudden, my certainty of this really fun kid was like, I'm doing something wrong. I don't know. I lost certainty. 3 years later, my brother unfortunately committed suicide, and I was there. And we'd moved, so I lost all my friends, and then my older brother died. This was very traumatic, really messed up with my certainty. 2 years after that, I fell out of a tree at the Cal campus and broke my back. I didn't know I broke it though. I crushed my back. And back those days, you were supposed to be seen and not heard as a kid. So they gave me drugs, and I grew up in Berkeley in the 60s, and I listened to this group called the Jefferson Airplane and a song by Grace Slick called White Rabbit, where they told me to find some other pills than the ones mom gave me, and I did. And it was crazy, but nothing helped my back pain or my reading. I never learned to read. They put me all the way through high school, just pushing me along. Now addicted to drugs. Didn't have the ability to do a lot of sports because this unknown back pain would occur. I thought it was normal. Then, I had to move out of my house at a certain age. Later, my dad told me that the school told my dad that I was, not very smart, to put it mildly. So then I re-injured my back so bad that I couldn't walk and I was carried into a chiropractor. Now, everybody that listens to my show knows this part of that story. I was carried in. I'd been on so many medications, most of them street drugs. Nothing worked. But I got one adjustment and I walked out. I was still in pain, but that changed my life. And I decided I wanted to become a chiropractor. But I was addicted to drugs and I could not read a comic strip. So this went on for a few years till I was 27 years old. Was in a band. I had all these musical instruments in my house and all the drugs I ever wanted. And I'm up there 3 o'clock in the morning, smoking pot, doing whatever else and drinking whiskey. And I went, my heart's going to stop. I literally thought it was going to stop. And I left my house and walked to the beach or the cliff by my beach. And I said, if I don't stop doing this, I'm going to die. Well, about that time, my sister had moved down to Santa Cruz because she knew that I was in trouble. And after quite a bit of convincing, she took me into a Dianetic center over in Los Gatos and introduced me to this guy named Jim. I was probably high that day, but my life wasn't going anywhere. I literally couldn't read still. Jim took me in and did one Dianetic session on me. Totally blew my life away. From that point on, I quit all my drugs. I was able to learn to read. I went through chiropractic school. I have a very successful practice in town, and I've written 7 books. So I just want to credit where the credit's due. And if it weren't for that, my sister caring enough about me against my will to make me do something to help myself, I don't know where I would be today. But that Dianetic session that I got, which you were describing, and I don't know how long it was there, it wasn't time to go home, but it changed my life. And I really want those of you that have listened to me for a long time, you know who I am. So I'm telling you this because I want you to have the opportunity. And there's a few things we'll give you that you might be able to do if you're at all interested. Buy the book if nothing else. There's a couple websites that you can go to, and Drew will give you some idea too. But that one Dianetic session, it changed my world. So I just thought, I don't know that you'd ever heard that. I just wanted to let you know that.
Great story, Duncan.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I had a similar experience early in 1969. I enrolled in a training class on Dianetics, And in order to graduate, you had to successfully use the techniques of Dianetics on another student and accomplish what they called a miracle.
That's
Whatever
cool.
that was. A
Yeah.
miracle was, making it work. So um, one day I woke up at 2 in the morning and I had a horrible rash. And it was so painful, it felt like knitting needles were going through my body. I felt like a porcupine. And so I drove myself to the nearest hospital and they gave me some steroid shot. And that
Yikes.
calmed me down, but did not necessarily address the cause of the problem. The funny thing is that uh, things are caused by things, they don't just happen.
Yeah.
And if you have water on the floor, it came from somewhere. If you can spot the source or the cause of the water, you can usually repair the leak or whatever's making this occur. Well, here I was with this condition of being in a lot of pain and discomfort, and they gave me a drug that suppressed the symptoms, but it didn't treat the cause or the
Yeah.
source of the problem. Of course, they didn't know the cause of the problem, and they're medical doctors, and if it was a physical issue, like you break your leg, you set the bone, right? Now that's good doctoring. But what if the problem is more balanced 50-50 with something mental and something physical? So
Yeah.
obviously the rash was physical, but the source of it or the cause might have been mental.
Yeah.
Well, I went in and got a Dianetic counseling session for this. And if I roll up my sleeve and I took a red magic marker and pocked my arm, it looked like I had the measles or something. That's how my skin looked that day. And I showed my fellow student there what I was suffering from. And he said, "Okay, well, we're going to have a session, and here we go." And we were both pretty young, pretty immature, pretty inexperienced, and pretty nervous. But here we go. Um, anyway, about an hour and a half went by. I don't know how much time, but somehow the session came to an end, and he said, "End of session."
Hmm.
Okay, well, fair enough. He says, "How's your rash?" I'd forgotten all about it somewhere in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm here. And I pulled back my sleeve, and my arm looks like it does today.
Wow.
And he absolutely freaked out. He thought, well, it's a miracle. He
Yeah.
he could graduate now. But better than his enthusiasm was my relief.
That's
I,
amazing.
I felt so much better. It was
Yeah. And I've given some Dianetic sessions myself over the years, and it's amazing. And, but really getting to your point that you were mentioning about part of illness, whether it's mental or physical, has a source that oftentimes we never get to. You want to call it an upstream cause these days, or, it's a kind of a trendy thing for chiropractors. We want to find the upstream toxin if it's
mm,
affecting the physical toxin on the brain. Well, these things, I guess they've been called like a held down seven on a calculator, are the toxins of this mental reactive mind. You're adding four and four and you come up with 15 and it's a perfect answer because you don't know that seven's down there and you keep making these mistakes. I want to make one more comment about when I was in my 20s, before all this happened, I really wanted to change my life. And I would wake up in the morning and I would go, okay, I'm going to make a decision. Immediately another me would talk me out of that decision. I
mm.
would literally have these voices going back and forth, telling me why I could, why I couldn't, maybe I should do, this is a common phenomenon. I mean, I was so confused. I couldn't move forward. I was paralyzed in my life to try to do anything because everything wanted me to stop. Can you make a comment on that or give some hope to
This
somebody else?
is described in the book Modern Science of Mental Health called Dianetics so well. It's the ability to differentiate. Your zest and enthusiasm for living and your success in accomplishing your goals depends mainly or primarily on your ability to differentiate. Your example of 2 plus 2 equals 11, that's true if you have a held down 7. In other
Yeah.
words, some hidden influence has punched the number seven into the equation.
Yeah.
And that's what Dianetics addresses and undoes. It allows this false identification to become differentiated. For example, my friend whose wife died, he had decided never to get over this, but he'd forgotten the decision he made at the moment of his severest, worst moment of his life. He's burying his wife. My God, his analytical power had been diminished by this loss, and the reactive portion of his mind took over. And
Yeah.
it was held in place until he looked at it. And that's what we do. This is the technology of looking. The Dianetic technique is the technology of where to look, and how to find the cause of your trauma and undo it.
That's amazing. So we've got about um, 8 or 9 minutes left. So I want to just kind of talk briefly about anybody out there what that has interest. You can always reach out to me, call my office, and leave me a message, and I'll talk to you personally. Drew, you're down in Pacific Grove. I don't know what you're doing these days. I also have Christina, my friend Christina, and Jenny over the hill that would both be willing to help people if they would like to find out about this subject. So I want to put that in your court, and you tell us what makes the most sense to you for these people that are listening today or friends of theirs.
Well, I'm available. I'm retired. I basically, this is what I do now. I help people read Dianetics, Modern Science of Mental Health. I have a pretty good life, and I have time to help individuals who want it. I'm not looking for a billable hour. I'm looking for somebody that wants to understand how to live life better.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that would help anybody that wanted the book, wanted to learn what this technique was all about, would like some assistance. It's much easier to climb a mountain when you have a whole party of people with you.
Yeah.
Going alone is not recommended. So
So
I recommend you get the book, you find out what it is for yourself, because we're not asking for faith or belief or acceptance or any of that. We want you to look. And when you see it for yourself, it makes life a lot easier. Uh,
yeah, we're
nobody's allergic to the truth, but the truth doesn't do you any good unless you see it for yourself.
absolutely. So I want to just mention that there's a website, dianetics.org, that people can go to. This is for anybody watching this later. There's a lot of materials you can get. You can actually learn how to help each other do these things, depending on where you are. Maybe you're in Timbuktu or you feel like you would like to embrace this. Drew has, been very helpful for friends and people that really need help. And I just want to, really appreciate you for coming on today, Drew. I was talking to a friend of ours, Jenny, who's in or over the hill in San Jose. For anybody that's on that side of the hill, on the 7th, they're actually doing a seminar on what they call the subconscious mind or the reactive mind. So
7th of July.
yeah. And I'm going to give the cell number, and it's Ginny. I'll give this a few times, 408-334-8745. I've known Ginny for 30 plus years, and you have too. She's an expert at this as well on that side of the county. Also, there's another really good friend of ours, Christina Gazetta, 408-806-5244. I'll give those again, get a pencil. But any of these people, are going to be able to help you. And I would love to see people do better in life. So this is a great opportunity. So, um, any other thoughts? We got like 3 minutes left. And I'll give these numbers again.
Uh, Duncan, it all starts with a decision.
Yeah.
Are you really alive? Are you as alive as you want to be? If you want to be more alive, you have to decide to do something to become more alive. And this sense of purpose, this sense of aliveness, this sense of waking up in the morning and feeling energized to go about your day is what I found the greatest benefit became from Dianetics for me.
And
So
what a great time to make a decision on the 250th anniversary of the most incredible country in the world based on we the people, where we have an opportunity to become free. We have this frees you up as an individual to be who you want to be. I don't know if it's relationships, there's people everywhere, there's money, there's more money around. You just got to figure out how to get it and eat ethically. So, Drew, I'm going to tell Christina and Jenny's number again, and then if you want to give some information, that's great. So, Christina Gazetta, San Jose, 408 806 5244 806 5244. Ginny Funderburg, 408 334 8745 408 334 8705. What would be the best way for somebody to reach out to you, Drew?
my number is 818-919-9511. That's 818-919-9511.
That's awesome. I think it would be a really good quote again. Maybe you know the one, may you never be the same again. Um, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's an adventure. Treat it as an adventure. May you never be the same again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you decide not to do anything, I understand. It took me quite a while to decide to make a change. But, now that I've made the change, I'm very certain of what I want to do, how I want to do it, and I get help when I need it. So it's we literally have a minute left. So we're just going to give the numbers again. Drew, go ahead.
My number is 818-919-9511.
818-919-9511. Christina, 408 806 5244. Ginny, 408 334 8745. And Dr. Duncan McCollum, info at McCollum Family Chiropractic. My cell's 831 320 6586. Happy 4th of July to all of you. Go out and know that you have the greatest opportunity to make anything happen in your life. You just got to get those held down sevens off of your calculator and be 100% you. That's what we're looking for, is to help you be who you've always wanted to be and be 100% you. Right, Drew?
That's perfect, Dr. McCollum. Thank you for having me on your show.
You're welcome. We'll do another one sometime soon. I really appreciate you making yourself available, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot. I'm going to sign off.